People in England are reading this book and they are finding it very inspiring and very, very stimulating. So I do commend these books to you. And Sylvia, of course, who is a very gifted New Testament scholar, she knows the Bible in the original Welsh. And that is something not many people can do. She did her PhD with Tom Wright on the whole theme of the Exodus in the Pauline writings. And she is an adjunct professor at the Institute for Christian Studies in Toronto, Canada, and also a co-author with Brian of this most bodacious book. So I'd just like to invite them to come and to present your thing, Brian and Sylvia. God bless you and God keep you.
Anybody sitting here?
No, go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, so that's Romans. Here it is. Any good news?
Good news?
Yeah. Any good news in the paper there today?
What exactly would be good news?
You know, stock market on the upturn. Maybe no suicide bombs in Iraq. Something like that.
Well, no, then I can't really say that there's any good news in here. Well, I mean, here, Hillary Clinton's out of the race for president. Is that good news?
Well, yeah, it's not kind of what I'm looking for.
Oh, here you go. Bob Dylan has an art show in London.
That might be better. No, that's not quite what I mean when I say, is there any good news in the paper? I mean, I need some good news.
You need it? You need this good news?
Well, yeah. I mean, don't we all? The country is facing an economic downturn, and I don't know about you, but if there isn't some good news soon, I'm going to lose my job.
Your job? Well, what do you do?
Well, let's just say that I work for a financial institution that provides subprime loans to people buying homes.
Okay. I could see that might feel a little insecure. Wait a minute. Have you tried looking for good news in there?
Where?
Well, there. Isn't that the letter to the Romans you're reading? I mean, I suspect you might find some good news in there.
Romans? I'm just reading this because some Canadians are talking about Romans at some event that I was going to go to this morning. But I haven't got a clue about what it's about. It doesn't seem to be good news so much as a lot of theological mumble-jumble.
Well, I mean, the people that Paul was writing to were looking for exactly the same kind of good news that you're looking for.
What? I thought the good news that they were looking for was for someone to save them from the works of the law and show them grace.
Well, you know, they did have a few problems beyond the work of the law.
Really? Like what?
Well, have you ever heard of a guy named Claudius?
Claudius, yeah. There was a movie about him not too long ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, okay. So this guy Claudius, he was emperor in the first century. And in the year 49 or so, he decided that he didn't like the Jews in Rome anymore. We don't know why. And so he told them all to leave. All the Jews had to leave Rome in the first century.
Why? Were they causing riots?
Well, it isn't clear. But, you know, he needed to show some authority. He needed to blame someone for some of the unrest that was going on in the empire. So by kicking out the Jews, he was sending this message. I'm in control here. I am the ruler, and these people are my scapegoats. So he was flexing his muscles. That's what he was doing.
Kind of like China, eh?
China? Eh? Are you from Canada?
Well, may we?
Ah. Okay, then.
I mean, you know, at least I've been there. I know they speak French. And anyway, kind of like China and Tibet a few months ago. Tibet engages in a few peaceful demonstrations, and the next thing you know, the Chinese army is there arresting the Buddhist monks and roughing up the people just to show that they're still in control.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but that's not where the story ends. There's more to it.
Wait a minute. Claudius kicked out the Jews. Did he just kick out Jews, or did he also kick out Jews who were Christians as well?
Well, Jews who are Christians are Jews, so they were kicked out as well.
Well, that would mean that the Christian communities there in Rome wouldn't have any Jews in them. Well, who would help them to understand the Old Testament? Who would teach them the stories of Israel?
Well, you know, you might want to imagine this, but if the Jews had been kicked out because they're Jewish, they might not want to be telling the stories of Israel. They might be a little afraid to go there. So I suspect they weren't telling the stories of Israel too much.
Well, no wonder then the Christians in Rome became so anti-Semitic in the next century. I mean, Marcion, he was from Rome, right? Mm-hmm. And he was the guy who said the Christians didn't need the Old Testament, right?
That's right. But you need to know that it didn't stay this way. I mean, the Jews did come back.
They came back.
Yeah.
So did they sneak back into the city in twos and threes, taking refuge in the homes of Gentile Christians who risked their lives to take them in? That would be a good movie.
Well, you know, it would, if you know, it was Hollywood telling the story, but it wasn't quite that way. What happened was a new emperor came to the throne, Nero, and he told the Jews they could all come back.
Oh.
So it wasn't quite so dramatic as you think.
Okay, so no dramatic rescues of Jews by Gentiles, but I still imagine that the Gentile Christians would have been incredibly happy to see them. I mean, 5 years, that must have been quite the reunion for these Jewish and Gentile Christians to come together again.
Well, you know, that would be a good Hollywood ending too, but it's not the way it happened. You see, the Gentile Christians, they've been kind of trying to keep their heads down. I mean, they were known to have some connection to Judaism, and they didn't want to experience the kind of suffering that the Jews had experienced. So the Gentiles, well, they weren't exactly welcoming the Jews back with open arms.
Kind of like those Arab guys in jail?
What? What jail?
Well, all over the United States and down in Guantanamo Bay, there are men of Arab descent being held without charge on suspicion of terror. And in the UK, Muslim men can also be held on such suspicion. And I guess the debate in the UK right now is, well, how long can you hold somebody without actually charging them with anything? But then even once you're released after being held on a charge of terrorism, and in Canada, the same things happened in Toronto not too long ago, even when you're released, well, then your life has been ruined. No one wants to give these people jobs, and even their wider communities want to steer clear of them. They've been tarred with the terrorism brush, and no one else wants to be fingered for associating with them.
That's exactly it. The Jews came back, and the wider Christian community, well, they wanted to keep them at a distance because they didn't want to get into trouble for welcoming them back in. So I guess rather than a great reunion, there was some kind of tension there.
Okay, that's all interesting. But Paul doesn't talk about all that in the letter. I mean, the letter is about justification by faith and the righteousness of God and, you know, stuff like that.
Ah, but is it? Let's just take that phrase, the righteousness of God. I mean, that word, righteousness, do you know any Greek?
Not really, no.
You know some French, but you don't know any Greek.
Really?
Do you know Welsh?
No.
Because the Welsh, well, we'll stick with the Greek. Okay.
Was the Bible written in Welsh?
Well, you know, somebody told me that the other
that
day.
right?
Yeah, it would be amazing. Also that England was the New Jerusalem.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a laugh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy was British. You
Yeah, okay.
gotta forgive him. Okay.
You're
That
talking about the
word-
righteousness of God.
Yeah, the word righteousness. In the Greek word is dikaiosune. And that word can be translated righteousness, or it can be translated justice. Either translation works. That was the word for justice in the first century, dikaiosune. So